Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's edition for Thursday, August 25th of Touch 'em All, presented by SportsMap Elite. As always, we're going to go through every game on the betting card today in Major League Baseball. I will give best bets where I have them. Only 9 games today, a little bit of a shorter slate. Um, so excited to run through it. Maybe not the normal 7 or 8 best bets today. We're going to have a little bit fewer than that, but fun slate nonetheless. We do have a game that's coming up at 1:10, so we'll get the 1:10 Eastern. So we'll get to that one in a moment. In the meantime, just want to make sure that we're plugging Sports Map Elite. With the team's been really doing a great job. It's $19.99 a month at sportsmapelite.com. Gives you access to a whole bunch of really talented handicappers, people who have been fairly consistently winning money. I haven't over the last week, but for the most part, the season's been pretty strong. So would love it if you went and checked it out. Feel free to reach out to me on Twitter if I can help at all. If you have any questions for me, my Twitter account is at Dalton on Sports. And obviously, BC, who normally joins me, he's awesome as well. Happy to interact with it. He's at BC_Houston1. But without further ado, we'll go ahead and start going through the games one by one. First game we've got, as you can see it there, is 9:07 Angels and 9:08 Rays. It's going to be a 1:10 p.m. start time. Patrick Sandoval and Drew Rasmussen on the mound in that one. This is not a game where I have a bet. It is a pretty good pitching matchup. Obviously that total's really low. I think it's appropriately low. I'll touch on Patrick Sandoval first. He's a guy that has really flashed potential as a pretty incredible starting pitcher at times for the Angels. That organization's been excited about him for a while. Not that I trust their talent evaluation by any means, but he's been pretty good at times, and recently he's been really good. He threw a complete game shutout in his last start. He's only allowed 2 earned runs in 19.1 innings in the month of August. He's got a 2.89 ERA since the All-Star break, an ERA under 3 season long on the road. So just a guy who's really in good form right now. And Tampa Bay is typically a place that guys like to pitch, so I think he should perform okay. Tampa is top 10 in baseball against left-handed pitching in WRC plus since July 15th. So not necessarily the easiest lineup, but a good environment for him to be pitching in. On the flip side, Anaheim's only 27th against righties since July 15th. They've struggled against both righties and lefties all season. I think that's why we're seeing Tampa as the favorite that they are. Drew Rasmussen, like Patrick Sandoval, has been absolutely excellent so far this season. Especially since the All-Star break. He's got an ERA of 1.93 since the break, 1.57 in the month of August, and an ERA under 2 on the season at home as well. So both these pitchers are in a really good spot to perform well. You look at Drew Rasmussen. This is a guy who's allowed 2 or fewer earned runs in 8 of his last 9 starts as well. So you're not really having those blow-up outings for him either. I think Anaheim's probably he is due some negative regression. I will say that. You look at his expected ERA; it's a little bit higher than his full season. But I just don't think Anaheim is going to be the team to put that on him. They don't really have the talent. Unless Trout and Ohtani hit solo home runs every time they come up to hit, I don't love their chances. So, I think the money line here is about right. I think Tampa should be a solid favorite. I would have loved to take a shot at an under or maybe a Nerfy, but Patrick Sandoval's got an ERA of 4.5 in the first inning. Would rather not mess with it. So, really no value that I see here, but should be a pretty good pitching matchup. So we'll go ahead and dive into the next game. We've got one more day game today. It's going to be Cardinals and Cubs. That game is going to be a 2:20 Eastern time start. Cardinals sending Dakota Hudson to the mound against Marcus Stroman for the Cubs. This game opened with the Cardinals as a small favorite, -122. I'm now showing the Cubs at -110 with the Cardinals around even money. Total of 10 tells me the ball's, the wind is probably blowing out at Wrigley. I'll have to check that sometime this afternoon. It's a pitching matchup between 2 guys who really haven't been all that great, and a couple guys who are really due negative regression. You look at Marcus Stroman; his expected ERA on the season is 4.38. His actual is 3.83. Tells me that he's probably due to start getting hit around a little more than he has been. He's been better since the beginning of July. His July was dominant, ERA under 1. August, he's been pretty good. He's allowed 8 runs in 17 and a third innings. The thing with Stroman, he had four walks in his last start, and he's been horrible at Wrigley Field all year. His ERA is 6.62 at home. And you look what he's done against St. Louis. The Cardinals have really hit him well. They scored 12 earned runs against him in 10 and 2/3 innings on the season. It's just been really ugly for him against St. Louis and at Wrigley. So I kind of throw out how good he's been since the All-Star break, around 2.5 on the ERA. Feels like a really high variance start for him, if I'm being honest. I could see him coming out and throwing well. I could also see him getting shelled by a St. Louis offense that's been number one against right-handed pitching since July 15th, edging out even the Dodgers. So it's really hard to project what we're going to get from Stroman here. I wouldn't be surprised to see some runs. On the flip side with Dakota Hudson, I've talked all year about how he's a negative regression candidate. And it's funny because as his ERA continues to rise, as he's been hit around quite a bit recently, his expected ERA is also rising, and he remains a negative regression candidate. Even with his season-long ERA now up over 4, his season-long expected is closer to 5.5. He hasn't seen Chicago this year somehow. I guess the Cardinals and Cubs probably still have quite a few games left, but he's just been awful of late. You look at his August, 9 earned runs and 13 1/3. That's a 6.08 ERA. That's with 9 walks and 16 hits in the month of August so far. So he's not throwing a ton of strikes. He's getting hit around quite a bit. His season-long ERA on the road is over 5. His ERA since the breaks around 5.5. You look at all the splits for Hudson, and you look at what he's done, really in the last 2 months, and there's not a whole lot of reason to believe that the guy is going to pitch well. Cubs right around average against right-handed pitching, so I don't factor that in too much. Both bullpens have been pretty mediocre, kind of middle of the pack in the month of August, so I don't add a ton with that. I'm tempted to lean on an over, but with a total at 10, it's already adjusted pretty far upward, and I think both these pitchers have at least shown flashes at times this year of pitching well, and if one of them does, that over gets really tough to get to. So I'm staying away from this game as well. I kind of lean St. Louis as a dog. I kind of lean toward an over, but I just don't quite think it's worth getting involved with. So we're going to be on all night games tonight. First night game that we'll talk about is going to be Reds-Phillies. That's 903, 904 on the betting board. The Phillies are gigantic favorites, minus 305 over the Reds, over under 8.5 in this one. A lot of the reason it's just Justin Dunn is just he's having a tough time since returning to the majors. He finally came back from injury. He's made 3 starts so far with the Reds. To be fair, his last outing was pretty okay. He came out against Pittsburgh, 5 innings, 1 earned, but before then he allowed 8 runs in 8 innings. His expected ERA, I know it's really early through 3 starts to start talking about that, but his expected ERA is around 8. And that tells me that, it's not one of those situations where through the first 3 starts he's just getting unlucky and, he's giving up high contact or whatever. He's just getting crushed. And this is a Philly team that's been crushing Reds pitching all week. You look what they did yesterday and the day before, 9 or more runs in both games. Philadelphia's top third of the league against righties since July 15th in general in WRC plus, and they playing a great hitter's ballpark. So I don't see any reason why Philly doesn't come out and score a bunch of runs again. If you can get a team total on them over 4.5, I think that's an interesting look. I'll have to let me take a look here while I'm on and see what I'm looking at, because that might actually be a play. Nope, I'm showing 5.5. So 5.5, I'm typically not going to get involved with the team total, but if you can find a 4.5 out there, I'd like that quite a bit. Looking at Aaron Nola, he's definitely mixed in some poor starts recently. He's allowed 5 or more runs in 3 of his last 7. He is due a little bit of positive regression based on his season-long baseball savant stats. But you look recently at how he's pitched. It's been a little bit spotty and inconsistent. The Reds are a team that doesn't hit righties terribly well. They're 25th in the league since July 15th at WRC plus. So in theory, Aaron Nola should pitch well. Justin Dunn should get hit around. But the Phillies are already a huge favorite, and I don't want to lay the 1.5 if I have to lay $1.45 on the money line to do so. One note with Nola, he's got an ERA under 2 in the first inning, and actually an ERA under 0.5 in the second inning. So I really like Philly to score first. I was looking for a number around minus 140, minus 130 or better. It's showing up for me between minus 160 and minus 180. So I just can't quite get there either. The right team's favored. I think Philadelphia should beat the hell out of them, but it's Cincinnati trying to avoid a sweep. I don't know. What do you got, BJ?
Hey, Dalton. I brought myself on camera because I followed your pick yesterday, which was Phillies over 4.5. Right. By the
Mm-hmm.
time I got it, it was over 5.5, and I still followed it, and they crushed that. As I'm looking back at the Phillies and what the Reds are playing, the Phillies are just knocking it out of the park. So, would you recommend staying away from the no-run first inning and hanging on the Phillies? Would you recommend playing the over/under on the game, or would you recommend playing the Phillies team total on the game?
Yeah, I mean, so the Phillies team total is probably my favorite look. And maybe, you know what, maybe it's a first 5 inning team total if you can get it around 2.5. Sometimes that's a good alternative when the full game team total isn't cooperating. Especially, now that I think about it, Cincinnati's bullpen is top 10 in the league in the month of August. They rank ninth in ERA over that span. So, if you can get a team total on Philly at over 2.5 and it's less than, let's say, minus 135, I think that's a pretty good look. I can pull that up right now. That might be a play worth making. But to kind of answer your question more fully on the team total at 5.5, I typically stay away from them. When I see a team total at 5.5, that tells me that the odds makers have high expectations for that offense, and yeah, I typically don't see the value,
Well,
but it also.
so I was just gonna say, so that's what it bounced up to after I saw your 4.5 the other day, as far as the Phillies team total. So
Yeah,
when I
this
looked to go to it on my site, it was already at 5.5.
yeah. Well, part of that I try to place my bets the night before because things like that are going to happen. But
Right.
I didn't get to that one in time last night. You know what though, I am going to play Philadelphia first 5 innings over 2.5. That comes in at minus 130. I just think Justin Dunn against this Phillies offense is just not a good situation. I don't think he might struggle to complete 5 innings himself, but they're just hitting the ball too well. So I do actually think that's an angle that I'll go ahead and play. What do you think of that?
Okay. You know the pitchers, you know who's going out there. I'm following you the entire time because I agree with what you're saying, but yeah, I got nothing other than that.
Sounds good. Yeah, I mean, and like I told you before the show, man, like butt in whenever. I love to. I'd love to hear what you have to say through all of it. BJ, by the way, is he's been producing the show in the background, and we've had a pretty good pregame show banter as well. He's got a pick for the people later on in the show as well, that we'll certainly get to as we go along.
All right, thanks, Chris.
Yeah. All right, the next game we've got is going to be the Rockies and the Mets. That's 9:05, 9:06. Colorado, a gigantic underdog here, plus 295. New York, minus 390 at home. Reason for that, we've got just a huge pitching matchup discrepancy here between Ryan Feltner and Jacob deGrom. If you've heard of Jacob deGrom, you probably haven't heard of Ryan Feltner. There's good reason for that. I don't think I have to dive too deep on deGrom. We know how great he is. We know that anytime he's out there and he's healthy, and he sure looks healthy right now, that he's not going to give up a whole lot. Colorado is in the bottom third of the league against right-handed pitching. So keep it really simple. I think deGrom pitches well, but I think the number makes it untenable to try to bet the Mets on a side. So I kind of look away from the deGrom side of things, and I start looking more closely at what are the Mets going to do to Ryan Feltner. Feltner's allowed 15 runs in 19 and a third innings in August. The Colorado bullpen has been absolutely awful. The Mets are actually third in baseball in WRC plus against right-handed pitching since July 15th. I put all of that together, and I land on a Mets team total over 4.5. So we're playing a Mets game that involves deGrom, but our play doesn't involve deGrom at all. I think he pitches well. I think the Mets run away with this game. But I do not advise laying minus 170 on a run line with the Mets. Instead, let's just play their team total over. It comes in at a much more reasonable minus 115 to go over 4.5. Um, I just think it's a great spot for their offense. They might cover that against Feltner alone, and if they don't, they've got a bullpen that is going to be. One of the things that's worth noting here, right? We know the Mets are going to be playing from ahead. Well, we know within reason that the Mets are going to be playing from ahead. Bud Black is not going to be going to Daniel Bard and Estevez and his best relievers if they're down 6-1 or if they're down 4-0. So I think that's where the advantage comes in as well. We're not going to be looking at the best Rockies relievers either, and it's a bad bullpen to begin with. So I like the Mets a lot. Team total over 4.5. Next game we've got is an odd day-ish game. It's a day game out west, 4:10 p.m. Eastern between the Guardians and the Mariners. I do not know why they're playing this as a day game. It's the first game of a 4-game series. There might be some sort of a reason in Seattle that I don't know about, but that's going to be Tristan McKenzie and Marco Gonzalez on the mound in that one. Over under 7.5. Game is lined close to a pick'em the last I've seen. I actually have two bets in this one. I'll touch on the under first. I like under 7.5 quite a bit. Seattle's been right around average against right-handed pitching this year, and Tristan McKenzie has been really good. He's pitched to an ERA of 1.34 in July, 2.60 in August. He's allowed only 4 earned runs in his last 21 2/3 innings. He's just been absolutely lights out over the last 2 months, and this is a Seattle lineup that I think he can continue that against. He's been just as good on the road as he has been at home. The only thing with him, his ERA in the first inning is a little bit over 4. So, if Seattle is going to get to him, it'll happen early, meaning if we get to the second or third inning here, I'm going to like a live under even more, but we don't know what that's going to look like. I think the full game under at 7.5 is a great look. Marco Gonzalez, it hasn't been great for him this year. His ERA is over 6 in the month of August. But Cleveland's not really a team that hits lefties terribly well either. They're actually better against righties than they are against lefties. Seattle's not a great offensive park. I think we're dealing with two teams here that are not likely to slug a ton. Playing a game in Seattle where these are two decent starting pitchers overall, even though Marco hasn't shown it recently. So I like the under 7.5, but I also like Cleveland quite a bit in the first 5 at minus 120. I think Tristan McKenzie is probably going to continue the role that he's been on against a pretty average Seattle offense. I think Cleveland's playing the better baseball in general here between the two. Give me 1 second. Apologies for that. But really, I just look at it as Cleveland's got the better starting pitcher out there. Their lineup's been hitting better of late. These teams have combined to go under in 7 of their last 8 games. If you look at the last 4 games for each team, the bullpens are both top 3 in the league in August as well. So that contributes to under. I don't think when the starters leave this game that there's going to all of a sudden be an explosion of scoring. So I really think we'll cash both of these. Cleveland first 5 minus 120, full game under 7.5. Next game we've got is the White Sox and the Orioles. That's going to be 9-1-1, 9-1-2. We're looking at Lance Lynn and Jordan Lyles. The only pitching matchup I've seen this year with 2 starting pitchers whose last names start with L-Y. Games lined around a pick'em last I saw. I'm not sure how that's updated since. Let me take a look here. I'm showing the White Sox as a small favorite now, which I don't think that's wrong at all. Lance Lynn got killed by Baltimore back on June 25th. He allowed 6 earned runs and 6 2/3 innings in that one. His first few starts, the first month or two that he came out from his injury, he was just awful. He has started to get better. His ERA in August is 3.04. His expected ERA on the season, 4.08, is more than a run different from his full ERA on the season. Tells me he's due for positive regression. He's been really unlucky. You look what he's done this month, 26 strikeouts, 2 walks. That's really encouraging. So I think Lance Lynn is becoming sort of a bet-on pitcher right now. He's starting to pitch a lot better than he was early in the season. Baltimore's around average against righties. White Sox are well below average. Or actually, excuse me. Oh, I'm sorry. No, actually, both these teams have been top third against righties, so I don't give a huge advantage to either side. The bullpens is where Baltimore has been around average, Chicago a little bit below average in the month of August. But just looking at the starting pitching matchup, I do believe in Lance Lynn a little bit more than Jordan Lyles right now. Lyles allowed 4 earned in 7 innings against the White Sox on June 26th, but he's had really mixed results. You look in general, his baseball savant page will say that he's well below average. He has allowed 4 earned in each of his last 2 starts. His ERA in August is almost 5. He has been much stronger at home, but I think this is a game where Lance Lynn is in better form, but I trust the Orioles at home. I make the game close to a pick 'em. I just don't see a whole lot of value here. So I'll go ahead and just stay away from that one. I don't feel like I have a great feel for it, to be honest.
Just, hey, popping up there again. What do you think about that game yesterday with the White Sox and Orioles battling it out for potentially a playoff spot, right?
Yeah, it's a huge series for both teams. Last night's game drove me nuts. I don't know if you had a chance to watch it, but we had the Orioles plus 105.
Yep.
O's were down 3-1 in, I believe, the 7th inning. They had bases loaded, hard ground ball down the third baseline, ball fielded by Moncada. He steps on third, makes the play to first for a double play. If he does, it was an awesome defensive play he made. If he doesn't make that play, the Orioles tie the game. The O's ended up hitting a home run in the 9th that we can play this game all day, but maybe that ends up winning the game. I think that game could have gone either way last night. I would make the pick again with Watkins, but just didn't work out, and that's baseball. But no, it's an entertaining series because you can tell that it's really important for both teams. And honest, I mean, the Orioles broadcast, I watched a bit of it last night. They're high energy about it.
That's the best baseball you want to see in August, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's your thoughts? Are the Orioles going to make the playoffs, or are they not going to make the playoffs?
I made a bet against them to make the playoffs once they started. I think the Orioles are a fun story. I think they are better than the public probably thinks they are, but my issue with the Orioles, they don't walk at all. They swing and hack freely. I don't think it's a good strategy for them down the stretch. I think they've played above their talent level a little bit, especially in the starting pitching. It's going to be really hard for them to win games down the stretch with guys like Jordan Lyles and Spencer Watkins taking these starts. I think we're starting to see that a little bit. And I just think the other teams in that AL wildcard race are a little more talented than they are. It's not that I think they can't. I mean, if they stay hot, they can get there. But
right.
I was able to get them to miss the playoffs at like close to even money. So I hammered that.
Nice. No, I was just honestly just curious if you thought they would make it or not.
Yeah, I don't know. I like them, but it's really hard for me to fully believe.
Okay, I'll pop back out.
So next game we've got here is the Blue Jays and the Red Sox. That's going to be Kevin Gausman and Cutter Crawford going in that one from Fenway tonight. Blue Jays have just owned Boston. They just keep beating them over and over. Last night they beat them in extra innings. Kevin Gausman's seen a ton of Boston this year. He's thrown 26 innings. He's allowed 4 earned runs. That's a big part of why I like Toronto here at minus 145. I don't know that line is still available. That was only at DraftKings last night. Let me take a look at what I'm seeing today. Yeah, I'm showing Toronto minus 170. I probably wouldn't play it there. I do think it's worth taking a look at, maybe even a run line, minus 1.5. Reason being, Boston's bullpen is just awful. It's been the worst bullpen in baseball in the month of August, and I would argue it's been the worst bullpen in baseball a little bit longer than that too. Cutter Crawford, he's got a pretty below average baseball savant page. He's been getting absolutely crushed in the month of August. He's got an ERA of 7.40 this month. He allowed 9 earned in his last start. He's allowed 5 or more in 2 of his last 3. He does have, one start against Toronto this year. It went okay, 6 innings, 3 runs. But just not a guy who I really want to put my money behind, especially not against a Toronto team that's been playing well and a Toronto offense that crushes right-handed pitching. To touch back on Gausman, he's got an ERA this season of 1.65 on the road. So he clearly likes pitching better away from Rogers Center. He's pitched well against Boston all year. 3 of his 4 starts in August have been scoreless. I think it's a great spot to back the Blue Jays today. They have the much better bullpen too, so I honestly don't mind it as a run line play -1.5. I just happened to get Toronto last night at -145. That just felt way too short to me, so I bet that. But totally understand if you weren't able to get to that when I put out the article last night. I think -1.5 is pretty reasonable as well. Two more games to get to. Twins Astros, they're finishing up a 4-game series tonight from Houston. Houston looking for the 4-game sweep. It's going to be Chris Archer and Luis Garcia on the mound in that one. I've got the total wrong here. That total is not 7. If it was 7, I'd be hammering the over. That total is 8.5. But yeah, it's going to be Chris Archer and Luis Garcia, like I mentioned. Garcia pitched well against Minnesota in May, threw 5 shutout innings in that one, but last 3 months, this guy just hasn't been very good. His ERA was a little over 4 in June, then a little over 4.5 in July. Now we're over 5 in August. So he's been consistently getting hit a little bit harder as the season's gone along. He's allowed 3 or more earned runs in 5 consecutive starts. I think he's a starting pitcher in general right now that I want to fade, and seeing him laying -176 tempts me to do that. The reason I can't, Minnesota's offense, without Byron Buxton, is simply not the same. And they've just been playing really poor baseball right now. It bums me out because I like the Twins quite a bit, but they're just not getting it done at the moment. And Luis Garcia is due some positive regression. His expected ERA in the season is about 3.5. So at some point here, I wouldn't be surprised to see the tide turn for him. Comfortable spot for him at home against a team that's really not hitting at all right now in Minnesota. Looking at the flip side with Chris Archer, he's in some ways the opposite, right? Like he's due negative regression. His baseball savant page is super below average across the board. Yet his season-long ERA is just about the same as Luis Garcia, and he's actually been pitching pretty well in August and July. He's allowed 2 earned runs or fewer in 3 of his last 4. He faced Houston back in May as well. 5 earned in 3 innings, so it didn't go very well for him. Part of me wants to take it over here at 8.5, but Houston games, especially at home, have just been absolute cash cows to the under, so I just don't quite trust it. I don't really want to put my money behind either one of these pitchers, but I think Houston's current form is so much better than Minnesota's that -176 is not absurd at all. So I'm just going to stay away here. Twins looking to avoid a 4-game sweep, maybe a little extra juice for them too, but I just can't get there with either side here. Last game we've got out west, it's the New York Yankees and the Oakland A's from Mount Davis and the dump in Oakland. Jameson Taillon and James Kaprielian on the bump in this one. Low total around 7. The more I stare at that low total, the more I want to bet the over, and I just might. But this is a great spot here, and BJ, BJ is going to touch on his best bet here as well. But this is a great spot, in my opinion, to back Oakland against New York. I'm doing it in a slightly different way than BJ is. I'm going to be on the first 5 innings plus 190 with Oakland. I think James Kaprielian has been the better of these 2 starting pitchers. You look at what Kaprielian's done recently: 2 or fewer earned runs allowed in 7 of his last 9, ERA of 2.5 after the All-Star break. And this is a Yankees team that's not hitting right-handed pitching well. They're 18th against righties since July 15th, and they've actually been worse since August started. They're 27th in the league against righties in WRC plus since August 1st. I look at the flip side. Taillon has allowed 3 or more runs in 4 straight, so kind of heading in the opposite direction. He's got ERAs over 5 in both July and August. He's been really bad since the All-Star break. He allowed 3 runs to Oakland in his last start as well, which is not a great offense in Oakland. If you're giving up 3 runs to them, that tells me they're seeing you pretty well. Oakland has been the better team of late. They've especially against right-handed pitching. So the one thing I want to avoid, I do think the Yankees have the better bullpen, and they've had the better bullpen of late. So that's why I prefer the first 5. But I think it's very much worth throwing a half unit on Oakland at plus 190 in the first 5 innings. What do you think, BJ?
Yeah, so I'm doing a full unit on Oakland, but I'm doing it on Oakland for the full game plus 1.5. And the reason for that is I just don't buy the Yankees. Like, it was sweet. It was a good swan song or whatever the case is. beat the Mets a couple of games in a row, but they've been terrible for the entirety of August, and I don't think that that's going away. And if I'm Oakland, right, you just won the game last night, right, in overtime or not overtime in extra innings.
Yeah.
The Yankees are flying over, and normally you would just go out and party, do whatever the case is if you're Oakland. But the Yankees are coming in town, and you want to put them in their place. So I'm going with Oakland is going to put them in their place, and continue or try to get back on that train of the Yankees are not as good as they fucking put themselves out to be at the beginning of the season.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the right side. Certainly the series means a lot more to Oakland, and I do kind of like the angle of the Yankees were just playing these super hyped up, packed house home series against the Mets. They get a day off. Now they're going to go play in Oakland, where even though they are the Yankees, that place is not going to be packed to the gills. So, no, I mean, I like the angle quite a bit. Oakland plus 1.5, I think, is a great pick there as well. So, good stuff. All right, before we go ahead and sign off here, I'm going to walk through my list of best bets for today. I ended up landing on 6 of them. Obviously, we added Philly first 5 team total during the show. I think they're going to get after Justin Dunn. I like the Mets team total over 4.5. Cleveland and Seattle full game under 7.5. Cleveland first 5 innings minus 120. Toronto on the money line minus 145. If you can only get a run line there, I don't mind that at all. I'd say go for it. I wouldn't play minus 170. And then Oakland, first 5 innings plus 190. I like BJ's pick, full game plus 1.5 as well. I think they'll hang around. And last I saw, you can get that at plus money as well. So we like the A's tonight. Those are the plays for today. I appreciate BJ for stepping in and providing some of his thoughts as well, and helping grease the wheels on the show today. Hopefully we'll be seeing more of him moving forward.
No, you don't want to see any more of me.
I don't know, man. I think the audience might, but I certainly appreciate the contributions, and like I said off the top, right? I mean, the guys at Sports Map Elite have been doing an awesome job of getting after a lot of these games. Even the last couple of days while I've been losing, we've had plenty of other people who have been winning. So, come check it out. We're having a great baseball season overall. Still, football season is going to be great. $19.99 a month is one of the best deals you'll really get in this business. So, yeah. The other thing, I haven't said it yet on this episode. I'd be remiss if I didn't. It's important to remind the people, don't ever refer to them as the LA Angels. They play in Anaheim. They don't even play in LA County. And Artie Moreno's on his way out, so they're about to move to Charlotte or something anyway.
So you opened up the Pandora's box. Do you think the LA Anaheim Angels are going to be the first ones that go to Las Vegas as opposed to the A's?
I don't know. I don't have any sourcing or any super reliable information on any of that. I think the A's are destined for Oakland. I think they have been for a while, but I think there are plenty of markets that I could see.
The A's are destined for LA or Las Vegas, you mean, right?
Yeah, Las Vegas.
Yeah. Okay.
The Angels might not move. This is like wholly just me speculating. I don't think Anaheim is. I think that ballpark kind of sucks as somebody who's been there a bunch. I don't think it's a great market.
I've been there.
Yeah, you're kind of just like trying to leech off the Dodgers market a little bit, but not fully. I think it makes sense for them to move into a market they can truly call their own. That's just my 2 cents. I think there are plenty of markets that they can do that into that are baseball ravenous. Like Charlotte would be a great place for a team. I think New Orleans would do well with a team. I think Nashville would do well with a team. I think Portland would do well with a team. There are a lot of different places they could go, I think
you're solid on Nashville. Charlotte it's like a Death Valley type of thing. Like I don't think they're really come out at all over there. Do you?
I do. And this is, look, I'm partially biased because I played college baseball in the state of North Carolina.
Okay.
And
Where'd you play?
I played at Duke, but I know that people love baseball there. It's a great baseball state, and people in the state of North Carolina, the closest two teams to them are the Braves or the Nationals, and they're both either 4 or 6 hours away. I think Charlotte would be a great place for a team, but I mean, they don't necessarily show up for Hornets games or Panthers games, but I just think it's a really good baseball market, but we'll see. Anyway, all right. Well, I appreciate everybody's time today. Like I said, fun having BJ on. Hopefully that'll continue, and we will be back next week on Tuesday with another Touch 'Em All show. In the meantime, hopefully we win a ton of bets this weekend, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much.